In 2018, 2.9 million Canadians were self-employed, and that number is steadily increasing. 37% of those individuals are women. So, you're calling the shots, you're setting the agenda, you're picking your own clients. But what happens if you're unable to work, earn your own income, pay your employees? Well, that can be a daunting thought in itself, but there are some financial options. And Jackie McCann-Scott, the owner of Invested Mama, is here with me to talk about what those options are. Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Ronnie. Thanks for having me.
So one of those options is income protection, and I'd like you to explain what income protection is.
When I think of income protection, I think of a series of financial products that are available to clients. People think of disability insurance when they think income protection. I tend to think about things in a broader context. Protecting your income against any, injury, illness, or health crisis, which will include products beyond disability insurance, like health planning and critical illness insurance. But for certainly our conversation today, I'd really like to focus on the disability side of things.
So what exactly does that mean? What does it cover from that sense?
Well, if you're unable to work for any reason, be it an injury or an illness, then your income is protected, meaning your income would be replaced by that policy until such time as you were able to return to work. So, that can mean a short period of time or it can mean a long period of time.
Who does it apply to? Do you have to be in business for a certain amount of time, have a certain number of employees?
No, and I think those are some of the misconceptions out there. You need to be able to demonstrate, that you have a track record of earnings, because what are we insuring if not, a track record of earnings? And income is everything, so you have to look at that. They also look at occupation risks. So certain occupations, may be looked upon as having more inherent risks associated with them. But truly, there's policies out there now that can cover even the most high risk of occupations. And then you look at different features that can be added to the policy in terms of how much of my income do I want protected? How long would I be able to wait until those benefits kicked in? And how long would I want those benefits to last if I was unable to return to work? And, entrepreneurs by nature are highly motivated to return to work, and they, if possible, want to get back. But if they are, unable to take time to focus on wellness, they may never be able to fully realize their dreams. And that's why I think income protection is so key.
So you talked about you have to have provable or measurable or examples of income. So does that mean that you should be in business for 3 years, 5 years prior to considering this, or can you have 1 year of business under your belt before you proceed with income protection?
Well, in terms of disability insurance, they normally look at 2 years of insurable earnings for, of a track record of earnings, and that is self-employed earnings as well. So what I often do with clients that haven't yet reached that milestone in their businesses is we'll put in place, a less expensive critical illness policy to say if you were unable to work because of an illness, the injury, is something that we'd have to work towards down the road. But if because of an illness you're unable to work, we can still make sure that you have a lump sum of tax-free income to allow you to focus on, getting better so that you can get back to work and be in business for that 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, however long you want to be. So there are steps that you can take, and I think, don't assume, if there's one thing for people to take away today, is don't assume because you're an entrepreneur and maybe a new entrepreneur that protecting your income is something you shouldn't worry about. I think it's something that you should be having the conversation about as soon as possible.
An illness, it doesn't necessarily have to be big illness. It can be a small illness, right?
Absolutely. We have policies in place that will protect you, day one from an injury or from an illness. And there was an Ipsos Reid study commissioned by a major insurer about 4 years ago. And that study showed that there are most disability claims, about 2 out of 3 claims are for periods of 90 days or less. So, it's not something that will necessarily make it impossible for you to return to work for years and years to come, although there are quite a few of those out there as well. But something that will, bridge that gap. Because as self-employed entrepreneurs, a lot of us don't have government benefits that will cover that short-term loss. That same study showed that 80% of people didn't feel prepared to have no income for 90 days. So even if we're talking a short-term illness or a short-term injury, the reality is it wouldn't take much for people to start having to cash out RSPs, take on more debt or dip into their savings.
Are women more susceptible to injury and have their income impacted than, say, male entrepreneurs? What does the research tell you on that?
Well, the research tells us that, yes, while men tend to have shorter mortality, meaning they tend to pass away before women, women have a higher incident of disability claims and events. So, and that's reflected in when we start shopping around for coverage for our clients. They see that they will pay a slightly higher premium than their male peer for income protection. And that's because the studies have shown that they're at a higher risk. So I always say to them, the bad news is you're going to have to pay a little bit more than your male counterpart, but you're more likely to need this. So that's why we still need to have the conversation.
What are the barriers for entrepreneurs for seeking income protection or having this overall protection?
Like everything, Ronnie, it is cash flow. Cash flow is king, income is also king. But what I find is people make the assumption I can't afford it, so I'm not going to bother. But something is always better than nothing. So I say to clients, come in, we can put a policy in place that will at least provide some relief if you're not unable to work. And we can build into those policies the option to increase those benefits as your business continues to thrive and as your income and your cash flow is not as big a concern. So there's always a solution. Just have the conversation.
Very interesting, Jackie. We're going to put some additional information on our website so people can get their head around how much this costs and additional details. But thanks for coming in to explain it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.